At 9:15 a.m. inside Buckingham Palace's Blue Drawing Room, a decision was made that could permanently reshape the future of the royal family. King Charles III had been presented with a file that, according to insiders, crossed a line the monarchy could not ignore. And what happened next may have sealed Prince Harry and Meghan's fate forever. The atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace that morning was described by insiders as unusually tense. Just minutes after 9 o'clock, senior advisors had already gathered in the Blue Drawing Room, waiting for the king to arrive. A red-marked briefing file had been placed carefully on the table, the kind of document that signals something serious inside the royal household. When King Charles III finally entered the room, witnesses say he didn't immediately sit down. Instead, he stood for a moment beside the table, looking at the folder that had been prepared for him. What was inside that file, according to palace sources, would trigger one of the most sensitive decisions of his reign. The document reportedly outlined a commercial trademark filing in the United States connected to the Sussex name. On the surface, it may have appeared like just another celebrity business venture. But within the walls of Buckingham Palace, the issue carried a much deeper significance. For generations, the monarchy has operated under a strict principle: the crown must remain politically and commercially neutral. That rule is not written in a single law, but it is treated inside the institution almost like a sacred boundary. Crossing that boundary could risk transforming royal titles from symbols of public service into tools of private profit. Advisors began quietly explaining the implications. If the Sussex name were attached to a large commercial enterprise while still carrying royal status, it could blur the line between monarchy and business in a way the palace had spent decades trying to avoid. One official reportedly described the situation as a precedent that could change how the crown is perceived across the world. And perception, in a constitutional monarchy, is everything. King Charles listened in silence. Those present say he opened the file slowly, reading through the legal details page by page. For several minutes, the room remained completely quiet except for the sound of papers turning. No one interrupted. No one rushed him. Moments like this are rare inside the palace, moments when history feels as if it is quietly waiting for a decision. For years, the relationship between the royal family and Prince Harry had already been strained. Since stepping back from royal duties in 2020, Harry and Meghan had built a new life in California, pursuing media deals, interviews, and business ventures. Each step had created waves of public debate, but the palace had largely tried to avoid escalating the conflict. The strategy had always been patience, allow distance to calm tensions, and keep the institution focused on stability. But now advisors feared the situation had reached a point where silence might no longer be enough. One palace aide later described the moment in simple terms: this wasn't just another disagreement within the family. This was about protecting the boundaries of the monarchy itself. When the king finally closed the file, those in the room could sense that something had shifted. The decision he was about to make would not only affect his relationship with his youngest son, it could reshape the future structure of the royal family. And within hours of that meeting, the first signs began to emerge that Buckingham Palace was preparing for a move few people had expected. The days that followed that meeting did not bring any public announcement from Buckingham Palace. Instead, something far more unusual began to unfold: silence. No statements, no denials, no briefings to the press. For seasoned royal observers, that silence itself was the first sign that the palace was moving carefully behind the scenes. When the monarchy faces a routine issue, aides respond quickly to shape the narrative. But when the institution is considering something far more serious, the strategy changes completely. The palace goes quiet. Behind those closed doors, advisors reportedly began mapping out a broader restructuring of royal roles, a process that had actually been discussed long before this crisis. King Charles had always believed the future of the monarchy depended on a slimmed-down royal family. Fewer working royals, clearer responsibilities, and a sharper focus on public duty rather than celebrity. It was an idea he had spoken about privately for years, long before he became king. Now suddenly, the plan appeared to be accelerating. The first signals came through subtle movements within the extended royal circle. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, daughters of Prince Andrew, had long lived in a gray area between public royal life and private careers. They carried royal titles, but they were not official working members of the monarchy. According to royal commentators, conversations had recently taken place about clarifying that status once and for all. The message was simple: if the monarchy was entering a new era, every role inside the institution needed to be clearly defined. But the most interesting shift in attention was toward another member of the royal family, Zara Tindall. Unlike many other royals, Zara had built her reputation almost entirely outside palace life. As the daughter of Princess Anne, she grew up close to the royal family, but without a formal title. Instead, she focused on her equestrian career, eventually winning international recognition and even an Olympic silver medal. Over the years, she became known for something rare in royal circles: quiet loyalty combined with complete independence. That reputation mattered. Royal watchers have long noted that both King Charles and Prince William value figures within the family who avoid controversy and remain focused on duty rather than publicity. Zara, along with her mother Princess Anne, has often been seen as embodying exactly that approach to royal service. So when reports began circulating that Zara had recently been seen more frequently at royal events and private family briefings, observers immediately began speculating that the palace might be positioning trusted figures closer to the center of the monarchy's future. Nothing official was announced. No new titles were confirmed. But in royal circles, symbolism often speaks louder than statements. And at the same time these quiet shifts were happening in London, another reality was becoming impossible to ignore. The relationship between Prince Harry and the institution he once represented had never looked more distant. 5 years earlier, when Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, the arrangement was meant to create space, a way for them to build a new life while still maintaining a respectful relationship with the crown. But since then, interviews, documentaries, and memoirs had repeatedly reopened old wounds between the couple and the royal family. Each new revelation added another layer of tension. And now, with the question of commercial branding tied to royal identity entering the picture, palace advisors reportedly began asking a difficult question: could the monarchy continue trying to maintain a middle ground, or had the moment finally arrived when the crown needed to draw a clear line? If that line were drawn, it would not just affect Prince Harry. It would reshape the balance of the entire royal family. And the next step in this unfolding situation would reveal just how complicated that decision could become. As speculation continued to spread across royal circles and international media, one question began dominating every conversation surrounding the palace: could the monarchy actually remove royal titles? The answer, as constitutional experts often explain, is far more complicated than many dramatic headlines suggest. Royal titles are not simply personal labels that can be switched on or off overnight. They are part of a complex legal and constitutional framework that has evolved over centuries. And any attempt to alter that system immediately enters a territory where law, tradition, and politics intersect. Historically, the British Crown has rarely taken direct action to remove titles. In fact, there is only one major modern precedent often referenced in discussions like this: the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. That law was passed during the First World War, when several members of the extended royal family had sided with Germany against Britain. Under that extraordinary wartime legislation, the government was granted the power to strip enemy-aligned princes of their British titles. Even then, the process was not immediate. It required formal procedures and parliamentary involvement. That is why many constitutional scholars argue that removing titles today would likely require political cooperation from Parliament rather than a simple royal decree. In a constitutional monarchy, the king does not operate above the law. Instead, most decisions that affect the legal structure of the monarchy must move through established constitutional channels. However, that does not mean the monarchy is powerless. The crown still holds significant authority over royal roles, patronages, and official recognition within the institution. A royal title may carry prestige, but the true power within the monarchy comes from being recognized as a working member of the royal family. That recognition determines everything public funding, official residences, military patronages, and representation at state events. In other words, while a title itself might remain, the role behind that title can be dramatically reduced or even removed. Over the past several years, the palace has already demonstrated this approach in practice. When Prince Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties, they retained the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex. But they no longer use the style, His and Her Royal Highness, in official capacities, and they ceased representing the monarchy in formal engagements. That arrangement created what many observers described as a delicate compromise. The couple could maintain their personal identity while the institution protected its official boundaries. But compromises only work when both sides respect the limits that were agreed upon. According to several royal commentators, the growing concern inside palace circles was that the boundaries between royal identity and commercial activity were becoming increasingly blurred. If a global brand or corporate enterprise were built around a royal title, critics feared it could create confusion about whether the business was connected to the monarchy itself. And the monarchy depends heavily on public trust. For more than 1,000 years, the survival of the institution has depended not just on legal authority, but on public perception. The crown represents national continuity, not private enterprise. If that perception begins to shift, the consequences can extend far beyond one individual member of the royal family. That is why advisors around King Charles reportedly began evaluating every possible constitutional path available to the crown. Some options involved legal measures. Others focused on institutional restructuring, limiting roles, or redefining how royal status could be used publicly. But whatever decision the palace ultimately reached, one reality had already become clear to those watching closely. The relationship between Prince Harry and the institution he was born into had entered its most uncertain chapter yet, and the outcome would not only affect the Sussexes, but the future direction of the monarchy itself. While legal experts debated the technical side of titles and constitutional authority, something else was unfolding quietly inside the royal household. The palace was beginning to move in a way it often does during moments of institutional stress, by strengthening the figures it trusts the most. Royal history shows a clear pattern during periods of tension. The monarchy stabilizes itself by leaning on those members who have consistently demonstrated loyalty, discipline, and discretion. And in the current generation of the royal family, a few names repeatedly surface when those qualities are discussed. One of those names is Zara Tindall. Unlike many public figures connected to the royal family, Zara has spent most of her life deliberately avoiding the spotlight that comes with palace politics. As the daughter of Princess Anne, she grew up understanding the expectations placed on royal relatives, but her parents made a conscious decision not to give her a royal title. That decision allowed her to build a life defined more by personal achievement than by royal identity. She pursued professional equestrian sport, eventually representing Great Britain at the Olympic Games and earning international respect within the competitive riding world. That background has given Zara something that many public figures struggle to achieve: credibility that exists outside the monarchy itself. Within royal circles, that independence has often been seen as an advantage. She understands the institution. She respects its traditions, but she is not defined by it. And perhaps most importantly, she has never publicly criticized it. In a period where the monarchy has faced repeated waves of public controversy, that quiet reliability has not gone unnoticed. Observers began noting that Zara had recently appeared more frequently at royal gatherings and private family events. While these appearances were not formal announcements of any new role, seasoned royal watchers understand how the monarchy often communicates its intentions. The palace rarely signals change through dramatic press conferences. Instead, it reveals its direction gradually through presence, proximity, and symbolism. When certain individuals appear more often alongside the king or the Prince of Wales, it usually means something. At the same time, Prince William has been steadily expanding his influence within the future structure of the monarchy. As heir to the throne, William represents the next phase of royal leadership, and many analysts believe that he and King Charles are already working together on shaping what the institution will look like in the coming decades. Their shared vision appears increasingly clear: a smaller, more focused royal family built around figures who prioritize public service over personal publicity. This approach reflects a broader shift in how the monarchy survives in the modern world. In previous generations, the royal family could rely on tradition alone to maintain its authority. Today, public trust must be constantly reinforced through visible responsibility, transparency, and restraint. That is why every internal decision carries far-reaching consequences. Strengthening one figure within the royal circle can subtly shift the balance of influence across the entire institution. And when those shifts happen during a period of tension with another royal family member, observers inevitably begin connecting the dots. Because while the palace was quietly reinforcing its inner circle, another reality was unfolding thousands of miles away in California. Prince Harry and Meghan were continuing to build their independent life outside the monarchy, pursuing media ventures, public speaking engagements, and global branding opportunities that had little connection to royal duty. And the further that path moved away from the palace, the harder it became for the monarchy to maintain the delicate balance it had been trying to preserve since 2020. What had once been described as a temporary transition was beginning to look more like a permanent separation. And that realization was slowly forcing Buckingham Palace to confront a question it had been trying to avoid for years. If the Sussex chapter of royal life was truly over, what would the monarchy look like without them? As the days passed, one thing became increasingly clear to royal observers around the world. The story unfolding between Prince Harry and the monarchy was no longer simply a family disagreement. It had become part of a much larger question about the future identity of the royal institution itself. For centuries, the strength of the crown has rested on a delicate balance between tradition and adaptation. Every generation of monarchs has been forced to navigate moments where that balance was tested. King Charles now appears to be facing one of those defining moments. Since becoming king, Charles has repeatedly emphasized that the monarchy must evolve in order to survive in the modern world. The idea of a smaller, more focused royal family was never meant to be symbolic. It was designed to ensure that the institution remains credible and relevant in a time when public scrutiny is stronger than ever. The royal family is no longer simply a symbol of heritage. It is an institution that must justify its role to the public every day. And that reality changes how difficult decisions are made. In earlier generations, internal family tensions might have been quietly absorbed within palace walls. Today, every conflict unfolds under the watchful eye of global media, social platforms, and millions of observers who analyze every detail. That level of attention means that even private disagreements can quickly take on constitutional significance. For Prince Harry, the past few years have represented a dramatic shift away from the life he once knew. His move to the United States, the media partnerships he and Meghan pursued, and the personal revelations shared in interviews and books have created a path that looks very different from the traditional expectations placed on members of the royal family. For the monarchy, that path raises an uncomfortable challenge. How does an institution built on centuries of tradition respond when one of its own chooses to step entirely outside that structure? Some analysts believe the future will bring a gradual fading of the Sussex connection to the working monarchy. Over time, attention may naturally shift toward the next generation, particularly Prince William, Catherine, and their children, as the central figures representing the crown. Others believe that history has a way of bringing royal family members back together, even after long periods of distance. Reconciliation has happened before in royal history, sometimes years after conflicts that once seemed impossible to resolve. But for now, the relationship between Prince Harry and the monarchy remains in one of its most uncertain chapters. Inside Buckingham Palace, the focus appears to be firmly on stability, reinforcing the roles of those actively serving the crown while quietly adapting the structure of the royal family for the decades ahead. And outside the palace walls, the world continues watching closely. Because moments like this rarely define only the present. They shape the future. Whether the Sussex story eventually fades into the background or evolves into something entirely different, one thing is certain. The monarchy is entering a new era, and the choices made today will echo across the next generation of royal history. If you found this breakdown of the royal situation insightful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We continue to follow the developments surrounding the monarchy and bring you the deeper context behind the headlines. And as the next chapter of this story unfolds, one question remains at the center of it all. What will the future of the royal family truly look like?